what I'm going to do today is give you guys a presentation about cloud computing and the different forms of cloud computing, and try to answer the question, how can cloud computing benefit my business? What I'm starting here with, and what you're looking at right now, is the PC in my office, or what would be typically referred to as, in our parlance, an endpoint device. That is to say, a device that functions, in the case of a PC, as a monitor, mouse, and keyboard, but really has very little to no software installed on it. What you're going to see me do now is transition to a virtual Windows desktop coming from the Proxios cloud, and on this desktop you're going to see the presentation we're about to start. So what you're looking at here now is a virtual Windows desktop. You can see there's no screen, no scenes or anything else, plain blue background, additional applications all across the bottom, etc. And here's the presentation we're going to look at coming from the cloud on a virtual desktop. As I said, what we're going to discuss today, or what the question I'm going to try to answer is, will cloud computing help my business? And I'm going to try to explain in the context of this what cloud computing is, and try to answer how cloud computing can indeed help your business if you're a business that is right for cloud computing. About Proxios, our company was founded in 1999. It was an outgrowth of some previous consulting work that I had done, and we started delivering cloud computing, virtual desktops like you just saw, like this presentation is running on, to customers in 1999, many years ago, or 13 years ago, many years in the computer business. Right today we have over 2,000 users all over the United States using the virtual desktop like you just saw, and trying to conduct business, or actually conducting business, hopefully in a more efficient fashion than they were doing before. I think it's important to realize that Proxios has achieved the notable distinction of being a Cisco certified cloud provider. That distinction is hard won. There's only 50 or 60 companies to date in the world, I believe, certainly in the North America, that have accomplished that and have met the rigorous standards required to become certified. Proxios also, it might be noted, is if not the smallest, one of the smallest companies to ever achieve this designation. Typically, the companies that have the Cisco certified cloud provider would be companies such as Verizon or large, enterprise, worldwide type companies like that. My name is Frank Butler. I'm the founder and CEO of Proxios, and what I'm going to try to do is bring to you today my experience, my thinking, and my understanding of cloud computing as it pertains to the market which I have mentioned that this seminar is targeted mostly at. I'm going to go through the presentation. Along the way, I'm going to do some demonstrations, kind of weave those in where they're appropriate, and then at the end I'm going to address any questions anybody might have. I think it's important to get grounded in what cloud computing is. It's a very overused term, and many people say, well, should I go to the cloud? Should I not go to the cloud? This, that, or the other thing of that nature. What most people don't understand is they're already in the cloud. For example, most people today use online banking. Online banking, you go to the, say, BB&T website or the Bank of America website or the local bank in your region, their website, whatever. You can go on to an online banking application and use their application to modify or work with your checkbook, maintain your bank balances, things of that nature, and do all sorts of things related to your financial, either company, corporate, or personal finances through that particular bank's online banking application. The interesting thing to note is that is nothing more than a cloud solution delivered by your bank to you and your company, and it is what would be referred to as a software as a service application. What's more interesting to note is that in the computing business, and in the cloud computing business particularly as it pertains to business, one of the biggest issues is security. People are saying, well, geez, can I put my documents in the cloud? What if my data, gets stolen, this, that, or the other thing? And there's a great reluctance to move to the cloud by many people because they don't think it's secure. Ironically, they'll put a Word document they'll keep a Word document private, but they'll put their money in the cloud. And it's a very strange psychology there. They don't have any problem using a cloud app to manage their money, but they have a lot of problems using a cloud app to manage data that probably most people in the world would have no interest in whatsoever in getting their hands on, unless it had Social Security numbers, credit cards, addresses, and names. So, or was top secret documents for some kind of corporate espionage type things. So it's really an interesting thing, but it's important to realize that there is this sort of tug of war between is it safe, is it not safe in the traditional cloud, where it is not a tug of war at all in the financial cloud. Other forms of cloud computing, e-readers, Amazon, you can go get your books online, and it's a personalized experience. I think that's another important thing to realize, is that all these cloud solutions are personalized to you. Your bank has your data in their application. Amazon has your books on your e-reader out of all the books that they have in their cloud. Apple is the same way with iTunes, and so on. Microsoft and Google also have various cloud solutions for personal and some corporate type activities. For example, Google has what would be called a software as a service application for email. It's called Gmail. They have many others. They have Gphone for telephony. They have Google Docs for word processing and spreadsheets. And Microsoft similarly is trying to get into the cloud game in a big time way with Office 365. The whole impetus behind Windows 8 is to build a cloud computing ecosystem for Microsoft. And so this whole trend towards cloud computing, certainly in the consumer space, is going on, and it has quite readily been adopted by many, many millions of people worldwide. So you are more than likely already a cloud user. The question is cloud computing right for my business? What makes the difference from a personal cloud computing experience to a corporate cloud computing experience? And why would you make that transition? So let's talk about that a little bit. First and foremost, this is not something new that hasn't happened yet in the business marketplace. In the business marketplace, Cisco, for example, predicts that there will be $172 billion in revenue spent on cloud computing in business by 2014. I think the other thing to note is you will see that that money is roughly divided between public cloud services and virtual private cloud services. The point being in that regard is that most people are kind of on this fence. Is it safe in the public cloud, or do I want to have a virtual private cloud? Now, what is a virtual private cloud, or virtual cloud, or a private cloud? A private cloud is really exactly what most companies already have today, which is just a new label for buying more servers to put in their data room or computer closet in their businesses that their end users can access. There's really nothing unique about a private cloud other than it's a new label for the same thing people have been buying for the past 50 years. It's like running your financial application, your banking application, instead of on the bank's servers using the online banking application, using some application that you run on your local PC, like Manage My Money or something of that nature. Okay, so the cloud market for business has arrived, but there's sort of this schizophrenia, this kind of duality of public-private. I'm going to spend the time today talking about public cloud computing. That is to say, moving what is your current private cloud to a public cloud or to a shared resource like your bank account, or I should say the online banking system is shared between many individuals. The public cloud is a common infrastructure or common solution shared by many companies. Why all the excitement about cloud computing? Well, why would you even want to do this? Well, there's many, many reasons why companies would want to move from their internal private cloud or their internal local area computing environment to a true cloud computing experience on the public cloud. The first reason for wanting to move to the public cloud is a public cloud provider can generate much greater economies of scale than any individual company might be able to generate. So that means that a public cloud company like Gmail has far more resources to focus on delivering email services to its constituencies than any given company does today that has 50 or 500 employees to focus on delivering internal business email. All that extra economies of scale means increased security, increased reliability, and other things, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Another reason that people might want to move to the cloud is to get out of the capital expenditure business and move all their computing to a business expense. That's a reason, but not a singularly compelling reason. They want to outsource their infrastructure support. They want to be able to, like online banking, from any computer anywhere in the world. They want to be able to access their corporate computing systems from any endpoint device anywhere in the world, anytime they want to. So anywhere, anytime computing is certainly a reason for moving to the cloud. Rapid deployment of remote offices, growth-oriented companies are interested in it for that reason. Mobile ready, they don't want people always having to come to the office. They want to be able to work from home, work mobilely on their iPads or Android phones or iPhones. So those are all some reasons for wanting to move to the cloud. But I think the most compelling reason, and the reason most customers that buy our service come to our service, is because what they realize is that their internal IT resources are, or to quote Gartner, 70% of their IT budgets are spent maintaining IT. That is to say, focusing on technical issues, technical upgrades, technical solutions, and spending minimal time, 30% of their time, actually helping users accomplish business objectives by leveraging technology. So what really people are doing with technology today, internally, on-premise or private cloud solutions, if you want to use that word, is to trying to create, with all this budget, 70 or 80% of their budget, is focused on trying to create highly reliable and highly secure systems that the end users can figure out how to use as best they can, because there's no one there with IT talent or technical expertise to really help them leverage technology as much as possible. Why people move to the cloud? They want to shift that focus. They want to focus internal, institutional, technical, and corporate knowledge on helping the company itself leverage IT to create more profit, more efficiency, or greater growth, or whatever the business objectives are. They want to take the IT talent and get them to really empower the user to leverage technology to the maximum extent possible. Why are all, one question that might be asked is, well, why is there so much, why can't just people go use technology? And how did we get here? And those sorts of questions. Well, I think it's very important to understand the history of this. IT began, if you look down to the lower right-hand corner of this slide, with the mainframe. And the mainframe was a sort of esoteric, secret place in companies where they had these very erudite IT people who took care of it, and nobody could go in there, and nobody could see it, and nobody could touch it. And it was sort of hidden from view and highly expensive, and et cetera. And the mainframe allowed a very structured computing to take place. For example, you could run payroll at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. At 5 o'clock, you'd do, say, a general ledger update. At 7 o'clock at night, you might do an inventory update. But it was very proceduralized and structured. Also, the mainframe could only be bought by very large companies, or a single mainframe could be set up as a service bureau, and multiple companies could share that mainframe to do these highly proceduralized things like payroll or general ledger or inventory management or whatever. But they were very inflexible in the way they went about these things, and you conformed to the mainframe. The mainframe certainly wasn't conforming to you. Mini computers were invented in the 70s, and the mini computer liberated particularly small to mid-sized companies from either having time sharing on a mainframe or moving from manual systems to computing systems, because they could finally begin to afford the mini computer. The mini computer allowed for a more customized solution that could be developed for a specific company. Again, it had, kind of the esoteric, heritage of the mainframe, but at least it could be implemented in such a way that individual businesses could leave their individual imprimatur on that mini computer so that it did what they needed to do, not sort of generically what many people might want, but wanted to do in a structured fashion. The problem was people still weren't liberated. People couldn't do what they really wanted to do, so the PC, or the personal computer, came into being, and it really took off because for the first time, individuals could take computing under their control and wrestle away all the tasks that the mainframe wasn't really good at and do it themselves on their own. And that was a great thing. And so PCs popped up everywhere for things like word processing and personal tasks. Still, some of the corporate tasks were done on mini computers and mainframes, but nonetheless, personal tasks, people could get to what they wanted to do in a much more individualized fashion. The problem, though, was that all this data that all these people created was landlocked on each individual PC. There was no way to share that information like you could on the mainframe or the mini. And so the only way to move data from person to person, or share corporate data, or share presentations, or whatever it might be, was to use something called SneakerNet, and that was to say take a floppy disk and hand it to the next person, and they would copy it onto their computer or whatever. Client-server computing kind of brought into, in the 90s, a solution to that problem. That is to say, we connect all the personal computers to a hub or a server, and all the things that needed to be shared could be left on the server, and all the things that needed to be done personally could be done on the PC or client. Well, that was all well and good, and that was great, but the problem with that solution was that it was great for a office, but it was not allowing people to interconnect to multiple offices together, or neither was it allowing for mobile computing or some of the other things that have come on the scene since the 90s. And furthermore, it required massive investments, or large investments, and large technical staffs, generally, or small technical staffs, or consulting companies, however you did it, depending on the size of your company, to care and feed for these individual client-server environments. To use an analogy, it's much like every company having its own power generator to generate the power for its receptacles and light fixtures in its office. And engineers and other technicians had to come around and change the oil in the generator and otherwise keep the generator going. The question then became, well, how can we eliminate this, so to speak, one generator per company for the power for that company model, and move to a more utility model where there could be a nuclear power generator that all businesses shared in? Voila, because of the internet and because of the changes in telecommunications in the late 90s and early 2000s, the cloud computing idea was born. Cloud computing really says that we're going to give you the best of the mainframe, time sharing, and the best of client server, personalization, without the headaches of having IT staff and IT equipment on premise. That is to say, your own personal generator for your business running. So cloud computing really was born out of that. And so let's talk now about what is cloud computing, what goes into a cloud computing solution. First and foremost, again, starting at the bottom of the screen and moving to the top, you need to still have processors, memory, and storage. Nothing has changed from the mainframe days. You still need that. And to draw an analogy to the PC, you need the same thing in a PC. You need on top of that some kind of operating environment. In the case of a PC, you have something called Microsoft Windows, but in a cloud computing environment, you use things called hypervisors, hypervisor management software, and virtual machine software that allows you to create what are called virtual PCs, which I showed you an example of earlier. On top of that, you've got to layer the actual applications that people will want to use. For example, Microsoft Office, email, accounting software, maybe income tax software, fixed asset software, whatever the case might be. You might even have some custom software. For example, if you're some kind of like junkyard dealers, believe it or not, junkyard dealers are actually quite sophisticated when it comes to technology, and you have a special application that manages worldwide used Maserati parts. And this used Maserati part application is custom, and it's certainly an application that would be in your on-premise environment. The problem might be how to get it to the cloud. We'll talk about that in a second. But this whole application environment has to be delivered to an endpoint, which we'll get to in just a second. But in order to deliver anything, you've got to have firewalls, routers, and switches, which allow the information on the cloud server platform, operating environment, and application layer to connect to a communications layer or telecommunications network, either a private network or the internet. And through that communications layer, the endpoint device can actually receive the application, whether it be a single application, like an online banking application, or in some particular cloud computing environments, again, which we'll talk about, a custom application made specifically for you. Let's talk about the various cloud solutions that are out there that you as a business owner can choose from. Again, starting from the bottom of the screen, the most fundamental form of cloud computing and one of the most pervasive is infrastructure as a service. Infrastructure as a service is a way of delivering essentially nothing more than processor, memory, storage, and what was called the application layer to a company so that that company's IT talent can focus on using that service to install, run, and deliver applications through the other layers, the communications layer, the route switch layer, etc., to the end user's endpoints. And so the infrastructure as a service solution is a very low-level solution principally targeted at giving IT talent the option of using a third-party cloud solution to get its servers and items of that nature to install applications and run applications for the end user. Again, not much of a shift in the focus of IT away from the so to speak, traditional technical focus that it currently has. Platform as a service is really not something that an ordinary business owner and or an ordinary business would typically engage with, but it's worth noting companies like Salesforce.com, Google, and other large cloud providers with individual specialized apps might have a platform as a service solution, so you can write a custom plug-in to Gmail or a custom plug-in to Salesforce for CRM or some kind of bolt-on application that you want to sell to third parties or things of that nature. So platform as a service is really an application development environment installed on an infrastructure as a service cloud solution, which can be both owned by the same company. Software as a service is what most people know of as cloud computing. As I've already said, online banking is an application, a single application instance or a software as a service solution. There are many, many, many other software as a service type applications in the world, whether it be something like a Spotify radio or a Pandora radio or a Salesforce.com or a Google Gmail or a Microsoft Office 365. These are all different applications, either business-oriented or consumer-oriented, that you can purchase from various and sundry vendors. The challenge for a business, though, comes in is how to take all these various vendors, if you want to move to the cloud, and integrate those applications. So let's say you've got Gmail from Google, Salesforce from Salesforce.com, you're using Intuit's online QuickBooks version, and perhaps Office 365 for Microsoft Office, and then you still have your Maserati auto parts application on your local computing environment because there are no cloud applications for that unique and specific thing. Well, the challenge then becomes how to tie all that back together, or how to, as one might say if you want to go to fairy tales, put Humpty Dumpty back together again once he falls off the wall. So that's the challenge for software as a service. So you've got to really understand that that is a challenge if you decide to use that computing model. One way of addressing this fragmentation that software as a service sort of fosters is to look at IT as a service as opposed to software as a service. Now, what IT as a service does is it says we are going to go in and take every single application a company is using today, including the Maserati auto parts application. We're going to lift it up out of their environment, drop it on an infrastructure as a service solution, and provision that application back to the customer, or all those applications, I should say, back to the customer so that it is coming from the cloud and indeed is a cloud solution, so that the IT focus in the company really can shift. So let's talk a little bit more about IT as a service, because that is, from where we sit, at least as Proxios, the most unified cloud computing solution available, and it is the least understood. An IT as a service solution includes all of the above. Starting at the lower part of the slide, it includes the data center. It includes the platform. That is to say, it is an infrastructure as a service solution. It also includes all the applications that a company might use, the Maserati software, as well as Office, as well as email, as well as all these different things. They are all implemented on the cloud platform. And with respect to applications, you can have your line of business applications, which you can already own, that can be put on the cloud platform, or you can have custom applications which can be put on the cloud platform, or you can take subscription applications. For example, you might buy Microsoft Office as a subscription and have your Maserati auto parts application, something that you maintain and you have your own programmers maintain, etc. And those two coexist in the same cloud environment. Where IT as a service differentiates itself, besides being a place to create a unified single environment, is that the IT as a service company will provide all the other IT services that none of the other cloud providers typically provide. For example, security and compliance. Most of your cloud providers, like a Microsoft or a Google or a Salesforce, are not going to make certain that your local office is secure from a firewalling point of view, or from any of the other points of view, wireless access point of view, antivirus point of view, that might need to still run on your local PCs. They're not going to take on that challenge. That's still your problem. An IT as a service company would provide the services as a part of its cloud solution to allow you to deal with that problem. Backup and restore, network management, endpoint management, patch management, hardware management, software maintenance, user training, all of those, we'll call them ancillary IT services that most software as a service, platform as a service, or infrastructure as a service companies don't typically provide, would be provided as an IT as a service type solution. That's all wrapped around or included within the context of a 24/7, 365 support paradigm. So what you're truly getting from IT as a service is a cloud solution that addresses every element and aspect of IT. What that does is allow you to shift the role of IT, shift the role of the technology expertise within your company, those same people who also have the institutional knowledge about your business, into an area where they can focus on more strategic and value-added services. They stop doing software and hardware maintenance, PC support, antivirus, networking, backups, hardware purchases, software upgrades, all that kind of stuff, and they start focusing 70 to 80% of their time on user training and support, helping develop applications, helping users find ways to leverage the tools available to them to accomplish more with less, help streamline business processes, and organize the company so that it can be a much more effective organization, leveraging technology to maximize the business efficiencies that one might need to improve profitability. So IT as a service enables that in the most complete way. It's not to say software as a service and infrastructure as a service don't enable that to a degree, because they certainly do. It's just simply to say that IT as a service allows you to make that total transition as simply and seamlessly as possible. So with that said, you can now ask the question, is cloud right for my business? And I think the way to think about this question is, if you're a company that really can't get any more business value out of existing IT resources, then it's really likely not to be something that you could use. If your IT people and IT focus and IT everything, your company is functioning with the maximum possible efficiencies that computing can deliver, then there's no need for cloud computing. Leave well enough alone. On the other hand, if you're constantly sensing that the IT is more of a hindrance than a help to helping your company succeed in the marketplace, then then cloud computing could very well free up IT talent so that that talent can focus on helping the business as a whole do more with less. So let's talk about some case studies here. Here's a law firm that wanted to revamp its IT infrastructure. That is to say, put in new servers, upgrade all of its equipment and software, etc. And more importantly, they wanted to help the attorneys be more effective at doing their jobs so that they could be more engaged with their clients, leverage social media, all sorts of different things. And they had a question: do we want to try to build this capability in-house, that is to say, refresh what we currently own, or do we want to use a third party that has it all pre-existing so that we can just implement our software and we don't have to focus on IT anymore, and we can focus our internal IT staff who know a lot about the legal industry and about what the lawyers need to be able to do, and litigation support, and all the different areas of legal management. Do we want to take our IT talent and really focus them on improving that instead of asking the question, how do I put in a new server, and it's going to take me 3 months to put in a new server, or new 50 servers, or whatever it is. And they fundamentally came to the conclusion that, and were able to do in months what it would have taken them years to do internally, because they were working on a fully vetted set of foundation technologies, that is to say, a pre-existing cloud platform and infrastructure, and in many cases applications, and they didn't have to fool with any of that. They could just layer on their own look and feel, and off to the races they go. And so, to give you an example, I'm going to now demo their desktop for just a second. So you saw earlier, and I'll just minimize this presentation for a moment. You saw this is my personal desktop, and I'm going to dismiss that. It works just like any desktop, and you can see it has my look and feel, and this is something I was working on for the speech, and so on. Now I'm going to switch to another virtual desktop, and what you're looking at now, or will be as soon as it refreshes, is the legal desktop. And you'll notice here that it is the LeClaire Ryan desktop. Whole different background. It has one of their applications, all branded for their use. Right here, it has Word. You might notice with Word here that it's going to have some plugins as soon as it loads, and it takes it a second to load because these plugins are very highly, you can see them popping up here, highly specialized for the legal industry, worksite and this, that, the other thing. So once these all load, they will have a very customized version of Word that can do what the attorneys need to do. So there you go. You can see you got Nuance PDF up here, Forms Assistant, Case Map, Numbering Assistant, Workshare, a highly customized version of Word that is specific to them. So what I'm demonstrating here is that when you come into these different desktops, if you come over to my desktop, my Word has none of that stuff. It's got Foxit PDF, but doesn't have any of the legal stuff. So the point is, what we've been able to do, and what we've done with these virtual desktops, is deploy to each individual customer the applications that are germane to them and that are completely tailored to their specific business purposes. Coming back to the presentation now, I'll talk about a couple more examples. Just a second. Okay. So that's LeClaire Ryan. Now let's talk about just a couple of other case studies. Atlantic Specialty Lines. What they particularly wanted to do, and I'll just summarize it very quickly here, what they specifically wanted to do is try to find a way to grow their insurance business. They issue insurance policies to insurance agents who have gone out and found customers. So they are in the insurance underwriting business, and what they've wanted to be able to do was double or triple their business without doubling or tripling their staff to process all these insurance policies. So their IT staff had been focused on keeping the servers going, and the users were left trying to figure out how to use the insurance policy issuance software in the most effective way. But the users didn't really have the IT talent to understand how to maximize the value of the software. But the IT people were always in the back room, or as the owner of the company once said to me, had their head under the hood, figuring out how to get the motor to work versus sitting behind the wheel with the user telling them where to drive. But when they shifted to a cloud solution, the IT people were freed up from the under-the-hood activities and were able to sit down beside the users and really teach them how to use the software, help them develop new software, etc. So they were able ultimately to triple, quadruple the size of their business with about a 50% increase in staff. So that naturally drove a great deal more profit to their bottom line. One other example, this is a company, John Montoro in Real-Time Accounting, that wanted to create a service bureau for QuickBooks users. So what does that mean? That means that he wanted to have a business where he would provide all the accounting-related activities or tasks, do the bookkeeping for a variety of different businesses. And today he is running 50 or 60 different virtual desktops, which I showed you earlier, like mine or LeClaire's. And those particular desktops each have an instance of QuickBooks on the desktop that is specifically customized to a specific customer, so that the bookkeeping service and the customer are integrated through the desktop, and the customer can get all its bookkeeping services from Real-Time Accounting without having to hire a bookkeeping staff of their own. So he has been able to help many, many businesses get this bookkeeping service and grow a business and even invent a business because of the cloud computing solutions that Proxios delivers. To sum up, Proxios is a cloud services provider, business virtual desktops, application hosting, telephone and collaboration, endpoint device equipment management, etc. And I've spoken a great deal about many of those things already. I want to take another couple of minutes and just add to the demos I've already showed you. And that very simply is to just show you very briefly a couple of things. One, believe it or not, here's telephony. You can see right here where I am actually on the phone speaking to you. Those little blue bars popping up and down are, so to speak, the histogram of my voice. That phone system is integrated into the desktop. Another thing that is of interest to many people is the control panel. So you've got this cloud solution that delivers desktops, it has applications on it and everything else, but how do you actually generate desktops, we'll say, in much the way that today you might buy a PC, go to some kind of software and create a password and a user account and so on in your company, install all the software on that PC for that user, and then give the user his new laptop or PC so they can actually become a productive employee. With cloud computing and with particularly a desktop as a service or a IT as a service type solution such as Proxios, this is very easy. You come into a control panel such as this, you go to manage users and you hit add new user. Now I'm not going to actually add a user because I want to, can you believe it? I am going to not add a new user, I'm going to just open up an existing user. And so this particular existing user will show you all the different components that go into a user creation type process. So you add their name, you add their address, they might work in one of multiple offices, you add their account information, you add any kind of challenge messages you might want to associate with their password, you add telephone information, you can add organizational information, so what their title is, etc. You can add group information, which would effectively be security, meaning that if you come over here and you go into, say, let's just say if a user clicked on something like this is my personal one, but if they clicked on, say, account management, well, a guy in sales might have the ability to get into account management because he's in sales, but he might not have the ability to get into accounting. So therefore, this particular group has not been added to his account. You can hit the add group button and do it, and then he could get into accounting folders. So this is a way of controlling security and application access. Over here, you can create email boxes for given users. You can set up things like Blackberries. You can set up things like ActiveSync ActiveSync right here. This is the email box with no ActiveSync. This is with ActiveSync. You can set up email forwarding, all sorts of things like that. Come over here. You can set up things like telephony. audio, video, and telephony. Come over here. You can set up and turn on the virtual desktop itself. So this is saying that this particular user can get to a virtual desktop. And then at the end, you're able to install software for that user. So you're able to click this checkbox and say, I want to give them Office 2010 Standard and Quicken Premier, and I want to give them Adobe InDesign. So you'd click those software packages, you'd simply hit Update, and then what would happen is a virtual desktop of the sort that I have been using here today, both for myself as well as in the LeClaire Ryan demo, would appear, and the user would be able to go right to work. So the point is, there's no buying a PC, installing software, creating user accounts, setting up email accounts. It's all done in one very concise, quick fashion. Another thing to note is each one of the services you check is tied to a contract, so that as you add services or delete services, your bill will fluctuate based on contracted rates that you've already pre-agreed to with the cloud computing IT as a service provider. So that's just a quick overview of the demo and some of the services that would be available to you in a cloud type solution such as Proxios, an IT as a service solution. If you want any more information, you can contact Tracy Dool. He's the Vice President here of Client Solutions, or you can contact me or visit us at our website.